Good morning, everyone. Just several more minutes to allow everyone to join the session and we will start. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, I think that we can start and everyone who will have an opportunity to join will join while we continue with the session. So good morning, good day, good evening, everyone. Happy Friday. On behalf of We Empower G7 program and Women Empowerment Principles community, I would like to welcome all of you, friends, community members, and collaborators. Thank you for joining. We are very excited that and very happy that today we are launching the Boost Yourself Learning Series. So thank you for joining for this important event for our community. My name is Diana Rusu. All of you already know me. Today I will be moderating the session and well, let's just be excited all together and see and spend the next hour together in a very exciting and interesting session. So here is the agenda for today. We will try to follow it and in 1 hour to learn something new as we promised in our previous conversation. We Empower program brings a series of learning sessions to help everyone to learn new skills that is among the top requirements on today's job market. But by learning these skills and their application, we will get more confident in our ability to participate in interviews, new job search, progress in our careers. In today's session, Boost Your Confidence, how you can be what you want to be. We will learn the ways we can make the shift from the self-talk with discourage and reduce confidence to a personal conversation that builds and confidence and becomes self-empowering. Promoting economic empowerment of women at work through responsible business conduct in G7 countries. As we say, G7 program, We Empower G7 program is a program founded by European Union and implemented by UN Women and International Labour Organization. And now I would like to invite Anna Guallarte, Program Manager for the Foreign Policy Instruments of the European Union at the European Union Mission in Canada, to provide some opening remarks and to kick all of us off to this session. Anna, over to you.
Thank you very much, Diana. It's my pleasure to be here today. Welcome everybody that is in the other side of the screen. It's the times we are living now are giving us the opportunity of participating in these events, although we are missing the physical contact. And I cannot really see the participants. That is, it's a pity, but I know that we are together on this, and we are very happy to be working with UN Women and ILO in this project. The European Union is really trying to promote more and more and more gender equality, gender opportunities, and we think that supporting this initiative is really a very, very, very good way of looking this gender support from a more business and private sector perspective, which was not the case before. And we think really this is the right way, because we need to gain our space there. the title of today is really very, very interesting. How you can be what you want to be. Well, I think difficult to know what you want to be, but I think if one is honest with themselves and has kind of clear but humble expectations, then I think that is very, very important to learn the tools on how to arrive there. So I don't want to keep the space of our expert today, Douglas Miller, because he has many things very, very interesting to say. So thank you very much. Thank you, UN Women. Thank you, Douglas Miller, for this. And I hope you have a very, very interesting learning experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna. We appreciate the European Union collaboration and support. As you said, COVID-19 made all of us to pivot, and in the situation when we have to do work and life and everything online, all of us at all the management level, whether we are in entrepreneurship activity, whether we are in a multinational corporation, we all experience some kind of confidence challenges, if I may say. Doesn't matter where we are in the world. So I know everyone is super excited to learn. So without any further ado, I would like to invite the We Learn trainer, Douglas Miller, also personal development specialist, to deliver the session. Douglas is the author of 21 books on different approaches and on self-empowerment. And his books are available in more than 30 languages. So you have a chance to get one if you really want. His facilitation and training work have taken him around the world in more than 65 countries. So please listen attentively to Douglas, because we will have a small quiz at the end of the learning session to understand what did we learn in this hour. Douglas, over to you.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. And I believe, am I sharing my screen now? I'm just about to share my screen. So just making sure that I can be seen. And that should be working fine. All okay?
Yes, good. All good.
Great. Okay, so here we go. I'll say good afternoon, because I said good afternoon to Diana because I'm actually talking to you all from the UK, from the United Kingdom, in the west of the UK, a place called Cheltenham. If you know the UK, it's kind of south of Birmingham, our second biggest city. So that's where I'm speaking to you from. So I'll say good afternoon from here, good morning and good evening, or close to good night if you're in other parts of the world. And thank you to UN Women, to ILO, to the EU, and this wonderful We Empower initiative, which is then launching the We Learn initiative, of which this webinar is a part, and which I am a part of too. So there's a few things I just want to say before we get started. First of all, you've noticed boost your confidence. That's attractive, I'm sure, to anybody, whether you're a woman or you're a man. That's a good thing. We can all buy into that idea. And then there's this subheading, how to be what you want to be. So here's an impression I don't want to give. So one of the things we don't want to do to you today, say to you today, is don't be fake. This isn't about imagining you can be absolutely anything. So we can all be CEOs of businesses. We can all win the women's 100 meters at the Olympics. That's actually not what we're saying. What we're saying with how to be what you want to be is that you have a remarkable resource of assets inside you, which many of us go through life not quite realizing. So really the theme today is about the kind of self-talk, the conversation you have with yourself about yourself that can actually boost your confidence, and you can get yourself in a situation where you see something coming up and you say, yes, I can do that, because I've prepared in my own mind, I've thought through the things I need to do, and I have used the resources I have to be the best version of myself in that situation. And we'll give you a few examples in a moment of the kind of things that we're talking about, whether you're at the start of your career, whether you're already progressed with your career. There are some things here, some situations that you will recognize and identify with, or at least some of them, that you need to maximize your confidence and to say to yourself, I can do this, I can do this. The second thing I want to say before we get into the main learning is that clearly today the focus is on women. What we're not saying is that only women lack confidence. I'm a man. I can think of situations that I am in even now where I struggle with my confidence, and I have to go through certain mental processes to push me through to get to the other side, and for me to believe that I can deal with that situation to the best of my ability. So many of these things we're going to look at today are shared across women and men. Research tells us that there's a little bit of a difference in the kinds of things that not confidence in women, not confidence in men. But I think many of the things that we're going to look at now will be identifiable to at least some of you. That's not to say that you're going to share every single thing that we're going to put up. You're going to say, yes, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that, and I can't do that, or I need to do that, I need to do that, I need to do that. There will, however, I think, be some things that you clearly identify with as we go through, and certainly I've had to experience some knocks in that direction as well. So let's move through then onto our first visual. If you're watching, then there is clearly you can see slides. If you're just listening, then obviously you won't be able to see these. But what I'm putting up now is, first of all, the things that we're going to do in this short session. First of all, we're going to look at what I call the confidence challenge. So we're going to look at 10 things that challenge us as individuals to be confident, 10 struggles that we have. As I say, we don't necessarily have all of them in us, but I dare say there's 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them that you will say, yes, I can see that in myself. How do I overcome it? We're then going to move into the future. Key question, what does good sound like to me? Now, when I first thought about this, I thought to myself, what does good look like? I thought of using the word look, but actually the focus today is on what you say to yourself about yourself. So it's really a sound. It's a way that you talk with yourself. It's a way of speaking that allows you to build and boost your confidence. So it's future focused. And how do I get there? We will finish this short session with 5 thinking tools that can help you look at a situation and say, right, I need to do this, this, and this. And if I do this, this, and this, I will be able to do that to the best of my ability. So 5 thinking tools to help us. And as I say, they will come near the end. Okay, there's a key phrase, a key quote, I should say, that I'd like to put up first of all, which is really about thinking. So that's really our emphasis for today. It's the way you think about your challenges that is your focus, not the challenge itself. So it's about adjusting your way of thinking. That's the emphasis for today's session, the way you think about your challenges, because it's the thinking that's got to be right to allow you to deal with the challenge that you see in front of you. And note that I've used the word challenge. I haven't used the word problem. It's a challenge, that's realistic. It's not a problem, it's a challenge. It's an opportunity to do something better. But it does challenge us. We're not pretending that these things are incredibly easy, but with a few simple steps, a few comfortable thought process, we can get ourselves through the challenges that we have. Okay, so we're going to start with those challenges. What are the kinds of challenges that we experience as we go through life? Applies to women, applies to men. I've experienced many of these myself, which is why I've been able to, I think, analyze them and then write about them from a, I hope, fairly convincing point of view, because I've experienced many of these. The first one is about overthinking. Overthinking. We often think about this one when we look at, say, sports people. We look at sports performers, women and men, who talk about something called paralysis by analysis. Paralysis by analysis. By overthinking and overanalyzing something, we cease to be able to do it to the best of our ability. We may well create stress and pressure in our own mind, which doesn't help us. So the first barrier, if you like, the first challenge is to stop ourselves overthinking. And some experts, one expert I read talked about something called the slow way of knowing. The slow way of knowing. Just slow down a bit. A nice quote I read was, slow down or nothing worthwhile will ever catch up with you. Just slow down. Many of the challenges that we have in life that we struggle with are due to the fact that we put ourselves under what I call false or fool's pressure. False pressure. I need to solve this problem now. But actually, in many situations, you don't. Just by slowing down a bit, letting, if you like, the slower processes in your mind get to work, the slow way of knowing, we can come up with answers that are much, much better for us, that work for us. So don't overthink. The second one, and we've all experienced this one, some of us are more sensitive than others. When we get feedback, we hear criticism. And what some of us hear is, you're not good at that. Think about some of those situations that you've really struggled with. If any of you have had to give a presentation, perhaps at school, if you went on to further education into university, where the ability to give presentations has become greater than whenever I was going through those experiences, you get some feedback, it's not entirely positive, and you say to yourself, I'm not good at that. Feedback is immensely valuable. And let's send this message out right away now, that it is so rare that someone who gives you feedback does so with bad intentions. People give you feedback with the best of intentions. It might be that they're not very good at giving it, but they give it with the best of intentions. They want us to be better, they're helping us. But of course, some of us hear the message, I'm not good at that. And we carry that with us. We carry that with us. And I'm going to say a little bit more about that in a second. Okay. And it's linked to criticism, the next one, which is our perception of fixed ability. Fixed ability. So I did something badly before, and I say to myself, that is my level of ability, and it will not change. And it will not change. So my ability level is fixed. It's something I'm born with, in effect. Now, I don't think, there's about 160 of you watching now, I don't think any of you really believe that. I don't think any of you really believe that, but we often act as though it was the case. I'm no good at this. I can't do that. We come up with these phrases that lead others to think that that is our perception of our ability to do something. So the perception of fixed ability that we need to get away from in our own mind. This next one, many of us are familiar with this. I'm very familiar with this, the idea of overload creating stress. And we say to ourselves, I don't have time to deal with my confidence because I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I don't have time to deal with my confidence. I don't have time to look at the mental processes I need to utilize in order to be better at whatever it is I want to be better at. Okay. The next one, self-talk. And I think we've said a little bit about this already, the idea that I need to have a conversation with myself about myself. And that self-talk can often be destructive if we are using some of the phrases we've already heard. You're not good at that, I did this badly before, I'm overloaded, I need to think, I need to focus on this problem. You know, the people who are charging around saying, we've got to solve this problem now, are not the people who are generally good at solving their own problems and challenges. Okay, so it's about the conversation I have with myself being calm, constructive, and forward-looking. So there's 5 of the challenges. We're going to look at the next 5 now, 5 more. This is one that is increasingly we're seeing lots of books being published on this subject, the idea of the imposter syndrome. Think of those situations that I'm sure some of you have been in, and I know I have. You know, when I first started work, and I've used one example already, giving a presentation. You have to give your first presentation, and your heart's beating like this, and you're thinking, I'll get asked questions I can't answer, I'll forget where I am, I won't be able to control myself, nobody will be interested in what I'm saying. That's a version of imposter syndrome. I shouldn't be here. Another situation where we find commonly people lack confidence, women and men, would be something like walking into a room where actually the room, where everyone in the room is a stranger to you, and trying to strike up a conversation where actually you don't feel confident in your ability to do so. Why would anyone listen to me? Why would anyone want to talk to me? They're all older than me. They've all got more experience than me. Why would anyone be interested in what I have to say? Another example of I shouldn't be here, imposter syndrome. Some of you may be going for job interviews at the moment, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, am I really qualified for this? I've managed to get through the first stage. They've looked at my resume, at my CV. I've got through that. Thank goodness for that. I've got through that, but now this is serious. Now this is serious. And I get the imposter syndrome. I shouldn't be here. There will be others better qualified than me. And the truth is, there's never the perfect candidate anyway. Nobody meets all the criteria. Nobody meets all the criteria. So you have the right to be there. But in many situations, we say to yourself, I'm an imposter. The next one, fitting in. I am not like the people around me. I'm younger. I'm a woman surrounded by men. Different race, different level of physical ability. I am not like the people around me, and therefore I don't fit in. I remember 20 or so years ago working on a learning program on body language. And when we were working on that program, we talked to women, we talked to many women about some of the things that they find off-putting. And there are even things, you know, you've probably seen men doing this. You walk into a meeting and there's a group of men with their hands behind their head. I'm sorry, not all of you are on video, I know. So I've got my hands, I'm positioning myself, so I've got my hands behind my head and an incredibly relaxed position, which it's known that men very commonly use in meetings. And it can actually be quite intimidating when you walk into a meeting and you think, well, I'm not like that. All these people are looking very different to what I'm thinking and feeling at the moment. And I don't feel comfortable. I feel, you know, go back to imposter syndrome, I feel like an imposter. And then there's this kind of thinking where we look at two extremes. We say to ourselves, or we see somebody, so this is another of our confidence challenges. We see somebody doing something brilliantly well. We see somebody dealing with a difficult customer in an incredibly effective way. We see someone dealing with giving a fantastic presentation. We see someone in a meeting arguing very convincingly for their opinion. And we say to ourselves, she's really good. That's terrific. Or he's really good and that's terrific. And some of us say to ourselves, well, if that's the standard I've got to aspire to, that's going to be a struggle. And some of us then take that a little bit further. She or he is good, therefore I am not good. It's another version of perceived fixed ability. The next one, the capacity to take risks. At least I am safe where I am. I understand it. I know where I am. I know what I'm doing. At least I am safe here. So the capacity to actually take risks when we're in a kind of comfort zone. When we're in a kind of comfort zone, we're going to talk about that a little bit further in a minute when we come on to some of our positive interventions. How we can take risks safely. How we can take risks safely. And our final confidence challenge is to actually undermine our successes. I did this. I succeeded. But anyone can do this. This is entry-level stuff. This is easy. And we undermine our own achievements. It's almost like we have a kind of passive frame of mind that says to ourselves, I am not worthy of those levels of achievement that others are getting to, or at least aspiring to in their own lives. So I presented some extreme examples. There are 10 challenges that I've identified that we have with our confidence. And as I say, we don't share all of them, but I'm sure some of us at least identify with at least some of them. And I can certainly identify, even at my age, I'm 54, I look at imposter syndrome and I still say to myself now, I still find myself saying to myself now, shouldn't be here. And then I have to snap myself out of it. And in a little while, we're going to finish actually with a few words about imposter syndrome, because I think it's a very common one the more I talk to people, women and men. So now let's move into the future. So if you're able to look at a screen, if you've got a screen in front of you, you will see a kind of circular maze with the word start and the word finish on there. And maybe some of you, those of you who can see this, so, as many of us would do when we look at a maze, we're looking on top of the maze, we start naturally just working out, how would I get from the start to the finish? How would I get from the start to the finish? So we start doing that naturally, don't we? I'm sure some of you are doing that now. You're working your way around the maze. If you can't actually see me and you can't see the slides and you're just listening, I'd ask you to visualize what that would feel like, to look aerially at a maze. The start and the finish you can see, so you're looking down on a maze, you can see the start, you can see the finish, and you're working out how to get there. But maybe one or two of you are already thinking to yourselves, actually the secret to doing this quickly is don't start at the start, is to actually look at the finish and work backwards. And you will find that the problem that some of you who are watching the screen can see, it becomes a lot easier if you actually start at the end point. And I'm using that because what we're going to do now are look at some interventions around your thinking and the future. So some positive, shall we say, self-talk interventions that can work for you. And it's focused on what does good, as I said earlier, rather than look like, what does it sound like? So we're just going to look at sort of 6 positive form of words and language that can start you off on the right foot, but also where I hope you can visualize yourself being in a few years' time or even next week with some things, okay? It's that sense of where I want to get to that's important. So what does this sound like? First of all, building confidence requires investment. So you are investing time, and you want to be able to say to yourself, I have invested time, I've felt the benefit, and I'm going to carry on doing that, even if time is at a premium. I am investing in myself because I have respect for myself and I want to be the best I can be. So I take time to do that. And as I say in a moment, we're going to look at some interventions that do take a little bit of time, but that can work for you. I have the right to be here. So this is the second one. I have the right. That's a really powerful word. I have the right to be here and be the best version of myself. I have the right to be here and be the best version of myself. And as I said earlier, you've got so many of these wonderful tools inside you, and your job is to access those. Your job is to access those, and you have the ability to do so. The next one, I'm energized by overcoming my fear of challenge and opportunity, if you have it. So in a short while, we're going to look at something called the the Abcde method for overcoming what you perceive to be your challenges and turning them into wonderful opportunities and actually being energized by something that previously was a fear for you, The fourth one, I talk to myself about myself positively and constructively. I think we've made that point several times now about the power of positive self-talk. Optimism and realism, as I consider who I am and could be, is the fifth. I am optimistic and realistic as I consider who and what I am and could be. This word realism is really important. Now, when you read, I'm sure some of you read books on positive psychology and positive thinking and so on, and some of it is wonderful. In fact, most of it's wonderful. But sometimes I just feel to myself that the idea that you can be absolutely anything you want to be is unrealistic. And I used a couple of examples earlier. This may be British reticence, and I concede that, but I will give that. We can't all be CEO of a business. We can't all win the women's 100 meters at the Olympics, as I said earlier. So there's an element of realism, but coupled with the idea that there are so many things that you can do, that you have the ability to do, that you probably haven't even considered yet. I can just quote one example of a much older woman I met 20 years ago. She was 68 years old at the time. Helen, her name was. And Helen decided to have some singing lessons in her retirement. So, many of you at the beginning of your career, she was right at the end. And she took some singing lessons. And 6 months down the line, she was invited to be in a choir. She started singing in a church choir. To cut a long story short, 1 year later, she was singing for the London Philharmonic Choir and traveling all around the world singing for the London Philharmonic Choir. And she got to that place from a year and a half previously, not even knowing that she could sing. Not even knowing that she could sing. So what's your version of that? Think of all the wonderful things that you could potentially do at your age. And this one's really critical. This last one, the sixth one, I have colleagues, friends, mentors, and allies who support, encourage, advise, and give feedback. I'm a 54-year-old man. I have a, I won't call her a counsellor, but she's someone I talk to once a week, and I devote 50 minutes once a week to having a conversation with her about me and what my hopes and fears are and what I'm thinking and feeling and so on. I do that now at the age of 54. I've had a mentor for 25 years who's been the same person. And I also actively reach out to my friends when I need them. I think appreciating vulnerability and where we don't quite know where to go and making best use in a constructive way of friends and mentors and allies and colleagues is incredibly powerful for you. It's not weakness, it's great strength when we're able to draw on that resource, but also that we are able to give it back as well. It's reciprocal. It's reciprocal. Now, my talk therapist, it's not reciprocal. I pay her to have a conversation with me, but I find immense value from it. I find immense value from it. Okay, so these are the kinds of things that you want to be able to say to yourself. If you don't already, I'm making some assumptions, and many of you do. I know these are the kinds of things you want to be able to say to yourself in a week, a month, a year, 10, 20, 30 years. I'm a real fan of the one that I mentioned at the beginning, which is taking time to invest in myself and my confidence. It doesn't just happen like that. Okay, so now we're going to just look at, we're going to finish now with five what we might call boosters. Five what we might call boosters, practical tools that can help you build and boost your confidence. So just 5 of them. You can see the first one if you've got your screens on. You can see the first one. Those of you who are just listening, I'll talk you through it in a moment. It's something. The first one is something that I mentioned right at the beginning of this short session about faking it. And, you know, how to be what you want to be. Does that imply that I can be anything I want to be? I think I've mentioned that several times. The implication is there that you might be able to fake it till you make it. This is a phrase that I'm hearing a lot. I know where it's come from, and some of you probably know where it's come from as well. Fake it till you make it, or fake it till you become it. But it's wrong, in my opinion. It's wrong, in my opinion. I'm going to say why in a moment. It's not about faking it at all. In fact, the opposite. So I'm going to take you back. I'm going to take you back a few years. And I'm going to take you back to a sport. I'm going to take you back to the sport of tennis, and I'm going to go back a few years now, where those of you who have played sports of different kinds, will recognize that if you want to be any good, you have to think about technique. You have to think about the best way of doing it, the right way sometimes of doing it as you're told. But you can apply that to any aspect of your life. It doesn't have to be sport. You think about what is the best way of doing this? What is the best way of writing this essay at school? What is the best way of giving a presentation as part of your university experience? What is the best way of having an impact at an interview? So you have an idea of the best way. And we're off, you know, there are lots and lots of books that tell us how to do all these things, and we buy some of them, and we go on the internet, and we do that as well. And I've got a problem with the best way. So let me give you a story about a tennis coach who was coaching players how to hit a ball in a particular way, And the tennis coach was following the manual. This is how you hit a backhand. This is how you hit a forehand. This is how you serve the ball. This is how you volley. And what the coach started to realize was the more that you focus specifically on technique, the right way of doing it, the less productive it became. The problem was overthinking, the first of the 10 challenges I mentioned earlier, overthinking. And what the tennis coach found, and wrote a book on it called The Inner Game of Tennis, what the tennis coach found was that if you give people time to find the way that is natural to you, with a little bit of nudge, with a little bit of guidance, but not too much, they become an infinitely better player as a result. They learn better. What you're doing is giving your silent intelligence, the brilliance that exists within you, time to rise to the surface. And what the author of that book said was that inside us, we have two versions of ourself. We have self one, who is the critic. You're no good at this. You could do it better. I know people who are better at this than you. You are slow to learn. And by the way, slowness of learning is no indicator of capacity for learning. Let me say that again. Slowness of learning is no indicator of capacity for learning. So this is your self one, the critic. And of course, other people may be feeding that self one as well. Then you've got your self two, the person deep inside of you, the silent intelligence who actually knows the way to go, who knows the way to go. And if only you give it time to work, you'll be so much better at what it is that you're trying to do in the first place. It's not about not taking advice. It's not about bringing in bits of guidance, not about watching people who are really good at something and saying, I can learn from that. And the reason you're not faking it is because it's already in you. You have the capacity to do it already. You have the capability to do it, but you just haven't quite realized yet. Okay, so that is the first of the 5 interventions, giving your silent intelligence time to work. What's wrong with just being you? But do you really know what you is? Do you really know what's inside of you and what you are capable of doing? The second of our 5 confidence boosters, this is a method called the Abcde Method for learned optimism. Learned optimism. This is a practical tool that I use even now. I first came across this about 30 years ago in a book called Learned Optimism, and it's an old psychologist, psychotherapist tool going back to the 1950s and 60s, but it's never been more widely used than it is now. The Abcde Method for learned optimism. Learning to be optimistic that previously about something that previously you were pessimistic about. I don't feel comfortable. I don't know how to do this. Maybe I'm going to be really bad at this. Maybe I'm going to make a fool of myself. Maybe I'm a competitive person. Maybe I'm a sports person. I say to myself, I don't know how I'm going to win this. I don't know how I'm going to finish, or whatever it might be if it's some kind of race. So the Abcde method goes like this. So it starts with what we call, so the A stands for adversity. The A stands for adversity. I'm going to talk through what each of these mean in a moment. The B for belief, adversity, belief, consequences, disputation is the D. So C is consequences, D is disputation, E is energization. So I'm going to use an example. I'm going to take the example of giving a presentation. In the UK, I remember reading this about 15 years ago. There was a survey done. What do people fear most in life? What's their biggest fear? Now, if I think of myself, I know how I'd answer that. If I ask you that question, you're probably thinking, well, what is my biggest fear in life? And interestingly, when this survey was published, death came second. Death came second. And first was the fear that many people have of public speaking. And that's not just you in front of 10 or 15 or 20 or 100 or 200 people. It's also for many people, even speaking at a meeting where there's 5 or 10 people. I do a lot of webinars with much smaller groups of 5 or 10 people. And I know even within that webinar, there are 2 or 3 people who do not speak. You know, if we're together for an hour, there are 2 or 3 people who just do not speak. Now, it might not always be fear. They might not have something to say, but I suspect that in 1 or 2 cases, it is. So how does this tool work for you? First of all, you define what your challenge is. So I've defined that's giving a presentation, okay? So that's your adversity. That's your A, okay? Your adversity is defining your big challenge. Some of you may be taking notes, so I'm just slow down a bit so that you've got a chance to do that. Then you go to the B, your belief. What's your belief about why this is a challenge for you? So think if you've got to give a talk, you've got to speak at a meeting about something. You're young, you know, just come into the workforce, and you're going to a meeting and someone's asked you to say something on something. And it's a challenge for you. You haven't done it before. Maybe you're not quite sure how good you'll be. You've seen all these other people doing it amazingly. You're younger than everybody else. They're much more experienced than you. You come up with all these reasons why. Perhaps you're an imposter in that situation, but you're there for a reason. You're there to make a contribution because people want to hear it. People want to hear that contribution. So you identify why giving this presentation might be a challenge for you, and you come up with the reasons. So some of these, some of you may buy into. So first of all, people won't want to listen to what I say. I'll be nervous. I'll get lost. I'll forget what it was I was saying. The equipment, you know, the PowerPoint won't work. So we identify the reason. I'll get asked a difficult question that I can't answer. So we identify some of our beliefs. Now, you might have all of those beliefs, you might have none of them, but most of us have some of them, okay? So we have those beliefs. So the C is consequences. What are the consequences of having that belief? The consequences are that those beliefs become self-fulfilling. If I'm overcome with nerves, if I'm worried about where I'm going to get lost when I'm giving my presentation, that's what's likely to happen. If I'm nervous about questions, then I'm going to answer questions nervously, or I'm more likely to. Okay, not definite, but more likely to. So they are the consequences. Then we go to disputation. So we identify our beliefs. So we say to ourselves something like, you know, the audience, okay, so I'm worried that they're going to be bored. So we dispute that and you say, well, why are people bored? It's because people speak in, you know, presenter speaks in a monotone, a kind of a voice that doesn't change. There's no kind of passion. There's no feel. Or there are no practical examples. It's all theoretical. So you identify your beliefs and you dispute them. You'll say, well, I will practice my voice tone. I will have really interesting visuals. I will tell some stories. I will ask some questions of the audience, potentially. We're disputing. So that's the D. And then once you've gone through that process, you should be energized. You should be saying to yourself, I want to do this now. I've invested this time. Remember what we said about one of the key, the first of those speech bubbles about investing time in your confidence. This is the classic example of where you can do that. And this is a great tool, I believe, and it's not my tool, but it's a great tool. It comes from Martin Seligman in a book called Learned Optimism, and I've used it ever since. And actually, if any of you have coaching, which you may well do if you're not already in your professional career, this is a tool that a lot of coaches use. A lot of coaches use this. A, B, C, D, E. So we go round, just remind you, A is defining your challenge, B, identifying why it's a challenge for you, C, the consequences, what's the consequence, what happens as a result of having those challenges, D, you challenge, you dispute your belief, and E, you've been through the challenge, you've identified solutions and you want to get going. Let's get started. Okay, that's the second of our 5. The third, and this is a little, there's one thing that I was very keen that we did in this time we have together. We've got about 7 minutes left, I think. So in this short amount of time we have together, a little exercise for you to try. So if you can see the screen, if you're seeing the screen, just try this. You may need to do it in your head rather than with pen and paper. But just have a go at this. For those of you who don't have who haven't got strong enough internet connection and you're just listening, I will read out what I'm going to ask you to at least just think about. If I do this activity with a large group, then I give them 5 or 10 minutes to do this. But we're just going to do a very brief version of it. Think of 5 things of which you are capable. Okay, so that's all I'm asking you to do. Think of 5 things of which you are capable. 5 things of which you are capable, okay? And I'm going to give you some examples. First of all, I want you to be as specific as you can. So if you play a musical instrument, if you put playing trumpet, for example, playing piano, if you're being specific, you would say playing piano to grade 7 or whatever the grading system is in the country that you are from, use that. climbing Mount Everest, doing a triathlon, giving a good presentation, having a baby, riding a bike, driving a car, using an Excel spreadsheet. Whatever it might be, think of 5 things of which you are capable, okay? And I'm just going to talk a little bit while you're thinking about that. So, I mean, sometimes if I work with individuals on this, you know, we try and come up with more and more and more. We try and come up with a really, really long list. But a minimum of 5. You've only got 3 at the moment. That's absolutely fine. Because I'm short of time, I'm just going to stop that there. But this is something for you to really think about beyond this this time we have together, this learning session we have now. So now I'm going to ask you to either mentally or physically do the next stage of the exercise, which is to put the letter P, either in your mind or on paper, by those which are proven. I have done this. So if you have put playing piano to grade 7 and you have done it, put the letter P there. Put the letter P. I've done it. It's proven. Okay. The next one, put the letter U by those which are unproven. I haven't done this. I haven't done this. Now, when I work with groups on this, in particular with large UN groups, and we do this live, and sometimes I have 200 people in a room, so a similar number to how many we have with us today, I find that 80%, around 80%, have all Ps, So think about how many U's unproven and how many P's proven you've got. They have all P's. What they are doing, and perhaps some of you are also doing, are seeing your capabilities in terms of what you have done, not in terms of what you could do. In other words, capabilities yet to be proven. Capabilities yet to be proven. In other words, particularly as we get older, you think about 13, 14-year-old children, they fire stuff off. And I know some of you are right at the beginning of your working life. You know, the younger people will fire off a vast, great list. Some reality takes over. We have to go to work. We start bringing up families. We don't have as much time. But we should always be conscious of the fact, A, that we shouldn't be prisoners of the past, i.e., I am only capable of doing now the things which I have done. We should be conscious of the capabilities that are yet to be proven, i.e., all the things I could do. And as you develop through your career, you're going to be much more conscious of, and you've probably heard these words before, of things like work-life balance. I use the phrase whole life balance. It suits me and it suits many people I know better than separating work and life. Work is part of life. Why should it be separate? Work is part of living. It can be a really, really positive experience, but we seem to want to say that it's not. But asking yourself this capability question is really important for that balance, because we should be conscious as our time gets taken up with other things like bringing up family and professional career, that we need something as well. Capabilities. I'm finding and learning stuff about myself as I go through life, and what a wonderful experience it is. Okay, we've just got 2 more now till we finish. We've just got 2 or 3 minutes left, so I'll just do these last 2 fairly promptly. As you go through life, one of the things that we mentioned earlier, much earlier, 35 minutes ago, was around risk and taking risks with your life. If you don't take any risks in your life, you won't necessarily be identifying and exploiting opportunities, all those wonderful opportunities that you have around you. So here's a little tool that may well help you with that. So if you've got something, so you're looking at your life now, so you're standing here looking at your life, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? What are the possibilities? What are the opportunities? Could I try this? Could I do this? Could I do that? A good way of processing your thinking is to look at what we call growth, stability, and risk. So I'm just doing this very, very, very quickly because we're short of time. Thinking about growth. So this is really about thinking about growth, stability, risk, thinking about growth. This is really about identifying possibility and opportunity for personal growth and development through the use of your imagination mostly. I can do this, I can do that. Oh, I noticed something the other day. That really interested me. You see opportunity. You might not use the word growth, but that's what it is. It's an opportunity for you to grow personally. So that's very motivating, isn't it? Yeah, I've grown, well, wonderful, I can grow. But here's where we need to control, okay? So it's not all about fantasy. It's not all about fantasy. We have commitments in life that we have to meet, but there's no reason why we don't have opportunities for growth. But we must also identify, as we're plotting a way forward, we must also identify what needs to remain stable. What mustn't change here? What mustn't change here? Financial commitments, family commitments, professional commitments, people commitments. Some of those things need to remain stable and within your realm of control, and you need to think clearly about what those are. So growth, wonderful. Stability, control. But here's the really important thing for me. This is where it's really, what are the risks if I don't do this? What are the risks to my life? I'm always amazed. Now, I have to just give you a personal example. So I said I'm 54 now. I went back to university when I was 47 and did some post-grad research. I hadn't been to university for 20 years. And at the time, it was kind of a random decision. It turned out to be an absolutely fantastic decision. And now professionally, I suddenly see that if I hadn't got that qualification that I got, actually, there could have been serious risks for me professionally in the kind of work that I do. And I remember asking myself that question at the time: what are the risks if I don't do this? If I don't develop my skills? If I don't learn and grow? If I don't know how to give a presentation? If I don't know how to conduct myself in an interview? If I don't put myself out there and push myself to do these things and take advantage of these wonderful opportunities that exist for us? Growth, stability, risk. And now we finish on the, I forgot a key point. I forgot a key point here, and that is we're trying to balance the three of them into what we call the sweet spot, where we can combine growth, stability, and risk together to propel us forward. The serious stuff, the need for control over certain things, is taken care of. I see the possibility for me, and I also know that if I don't do this, this could actually be bad for me. It could be detrimental for me in terms of my life chances. Look at you all now listening to me. I'm speaking in English. You're from many different countries. You've all done this. You've learnt English. You understand what I'm saying. You've given yourself a wonderful opportunity. So you've actually done this. You've actually done this. You know, your stability might be, well, I must make sure I maintain my language skills in my first language. Of course, what are the risks if I don't do this? I lose the potential for a lot of opportunities in my life if I haven't learned a second language, whatever that language, or a third language, whatever that language might be. So let's finish up with final message, and this is around one that I know is very, very big for a lot of people. I picked this up, I've been thinking about this subject a lot in the last week or so. So learn to love your imposter, learn to love your vulnerabilities, and I won't call them weaknesses, but learn to love the things that compromise your ability to perform to the best of your ability. So recognize this, first of all, that having doubts is normal. Statistics say 70% of us experience something called imposter syndrome. I am not meant to be here. 70% of it. I've had it. 70% of us. Slightly more women than men, but 70% of us have experienced this. It's perfectly natural and normal to be that way. Many of us have doubts. That's natural. That's normal. It's not a problem. Many of us have it. And as I said earlier, the world isn't full of people who are faking it until they make it. There aren't all these fakes everywhere. There are people with doubts. There are people wondering if they can do this. But there are also people who have all those thoughts in their head who go on to achieve wonderful things. So I'll say having doubts is normal, but succeeding is normal too. We carry our vulnerabilities with us. We make it. I have many of the vulnerabilities I had earlier in my life, but we've made it. And so have many of you. Some of you will be very, very clear on what your vulnerabilities are. We've overcome lack of confidence. We've built success. Many of you are already successful. Some of you are wanting to really work hard so that you can achieve the things you want to achieve in life, and you're at the start of your professional career. But you have that capacity. Succeeding is normal, having doubts is normal, and there are millions of people like you, millions of people like me who have doubts, in some situations who lack confidence, but who pull through. And I hope with some of the tools that I've shared with you this afternoon, my time, with some of those tools, with some of those thinking processes, with some of those identifications of some of the challenges we have, you can believe that actually you have the capacity to both boost and build your confidence and achieve the things that you want to achieve in your professional life and in your personal life. So I'll thank you all very much today for listening, for taking part. And I can't see you, I can't hear you, we haven't got the chat function, but I hope there's been, my intention is that there are some things of great value that you feel you can use in the future. Now, I believe I'm going to talk, I'm talking now to the organizer, Anna.
Thank you so much, Douglas. I want to react, but today I'm a learner, as many others are, online. So I just want to know how well did I understood the session and if I was good in learning. So what we will do now, before we will go to closing remarks, we will have a test. And I hope everyone is so excited to take it as I am. So the first question, please complete the sentence. It's not about the challenge, but it is about leaping into action. It is the way you think about the challenge. It is about thinking about the problem. It is about competing with others and winning over them. So please choose the right answer. Douglas then will share how well we did. Just several more seconds to allow all the learners, including me and many others online, to respond to the questions. I know we have a time constraint, so we'll be respectful to everyone. Thank you so much for your responses.
Okay. Wow.
These are the results.
Shall I just say a word about that, Diana? Yeah, I mean, I think, and as you'll recognise in the session, it's the way you think about the challenge, and 93% of you have put that. I'm glad that nobody's put it's about competing with others and winning them over. There's definitely a case for, so I'm saying, leaping into action, but leaping into action is preceded by clear thought. I think one or two of you may well say, no, it's good for me just to jump in and that works for me. That is fine. Okay. So but we'll go for the second one, 93% of you. Okay. And then this one.
So we have some important learning. Please do choose which one was the most important for you. And while we do so, I would like to invite Anna, the manager of We Empower G7 project and head of Women Empowerment Principal Secretariat, to deliver some closing remarks and to share her emotions after this learning session. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Diana, and thank you very much, Douglas. It has actually brought back a lot of reflections on my own journey, and as we often talk about it, my own learning journey. I used to be, as a child, very, very shy, and the worst I could think of, and not knowing the challenges of life, but as a child, the worst I could think of was actually to speak on the phone with somebody that I didn't know. I can really see that if I wouldn't have dealt with that challenge, I wouldn't have encountered the other challenges that have come later and had to deal with those. So when I was in my early 20s, I took a job in telemarketing, and by speaking with people that I don't know all day long actually helped me overcome this fear, which then led to the fear of speaking in groups. And I took a job as a tourist guide. So I kind of try to really push myself when I have encountered another fear. How do I overcome this? What is the best way to overcome this fear? So Douglas, it really kind of struck some memories in my youth of how I dealt with these. And the one lesson that I learned that I joined the UN is that criticism, or what we rather like to hear as feedback, is actually a sign of love. And thinking about it that way, that somebody that takes the time to look at what you're working on, or taking the time to really look at what you're good at or not, they do it, as you said, Douglas, with the best intentions. Not always delivered in the best way, but if you kind of switch your thinking, and I think this is really about how we think about things, if you push it to the positive side, that's when you actually will appreciate. The more feedback you get, the more love has been in that process of getting that feedback. So that I know the team is, my team is also on the line, and I really hope that they understand that too. But I'd like to just take what's next. This is not the only session that we have. We haven't come up with a name yet, but we call it Boost Yourself series. So we will have other topics coming, and we're also going to mix it a little bit with some technical skills. So on the 23rd of September is the next webinar or learning session. It will focus on financial essentials together with the Business Development Bank of Canada. And on 7 October, we will having the seat at the table, focusing on women of colors and how those type of struggles. So we are coming on it from different angles. These are learning sessions, and the most exciting thing is that we will package them into learning management systems, so that this content will live on after the webinars are over. So stay connected with us, and also stay tuned. Look out for us on webs.org, and you will see new things coming your way. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining the session today. I see there's a lot of great feedback. And also, if you have in the interim some things that we can do better, of course, we see that as a proof of love. So happy to receive that by email as well. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to our speakers and our trainer. Stay tuned and take care of yourself. We are still in COVID time, and we need to take care of our families, friends, and each other. Stay safe. Have a great weekend.